So g'day, how you going? I'm making this video for people who are looking at the Honda Crosstourer, the 1200X, the off-road going version of the 1200F. I wanted to do a review on the Crosstourer for people who are looking at either buying a second-hand one or for people who are looking at buying them for the first time. It's February 2016 right now. So the Crosstourer hasn't actually been released in the United States yet. So if you're looking at buying one of these in the US and you're waiting for one of them to come out, I've got to tell you they're definitely a wonderful bike. They've got this amazing engine. That V4 is just spectacular. You know, it's based on the MotoGP bike. It's got a lot of the thinking, I won't say the technology, but a lot of the thinking and ideas behind the MotoGP bike have made their way into this. The engine in that's a 1237cc, is actually smaller and more compact than in the VFR 800, which is a 90-degree V4. This is a 76-degree V4. And it's just incredible. It's got the Unicam in it. So the same as the CRF, same as the Africa Twin that's coming out. CRF 250s, 450s, and the Africa Twin that's coming out. So it's got the same Unicam setup, which makes it a really narrow head, very compact top end. It's a beautiful engine. This is the same engine as in the 1200F, the VFR 1200F, which is the road-going version. Same engine, but it's just been detuned. It's got smaller headers on it. It's different ECU, different fuel mapping, all that sort of stuff. So the road-going version is a 170 horsepower bike. This is 130. It's got 127 Newton meters of torque, which is just like a tractor. It's phenomenal. So you just got roll on power in almost any gear. Well, in any gear, it's just incredible. So I've had this bike for just over 6 months. I've done 20,000 kilometers in 6 months on pretty much all terrain, and I've got a pretty fair understanding of the bike, and hope to be able to give you some detailed understanding of what it's like to actually own the bike. So if you're looking at purchasing this, bike has not yet been released in the USA, so I'm hoping this review will be of interest to those people in the United States that are yet to buy this bike. Obviously you're going to get the 2016 model, which is slightly different. This is a 2012 model. The differences are really only minor. They're really electronics packages and a little bit of aesthetics. You know, the plastics are a little bit different, the colours are a little bit different, but essentially it's the same engine, same drive chain, same brakes, same suspension. You know, what you're getting is a whole lot of bike. And you put two people on this in a full load of gear, and the power delivery just doesn't notice the extra weight. You'll see some of my other videos. I did 5,000 kilometers in 10 days, two up through a whole range of various conditions. The link to the videos in here, and that was an amazing trip, and the bike just performed flawlessly as it was designed to and as it's supposed to. I got a few cameras on it. I actually dropped it this afternoon. I was going up a sandy track just so I could get some footage for you guys of the back wheels, roosting, and just got into a bit of trouble in the sand, dropped the bike. But look, easy enough to pick up. It's pretty easy. I've just made a whole heap of video, so it's going to be stitched together. The continuity is going to be all over the place, but hopefully the finished product will be a really good review of a bike that I think is absolutely fantastic. This is my go-to bike every time now. I love this thing. I've ridden the Teneres, and I've ridden the the Suzukis, and I've ridden the KTMs and the Ducatis and the BMWs. I've ridden them all. I'm a V4 fan. Absolutely love this engine and drive shaft configuration. I'm not a fan of, I love gadgets and technology and all that sort of stuff, and I've got all that on the bike as add-ons for my phone and for the GPS and all that sort of stuff, so I love technology. But I just don't like it integrated into a bike. Honda don't do it. And the reason that they do that is because Honda's core focus has always been reliability. So if your intention is to, get a long way out of civilization on one of these things, it doesn't have to be off-road, but if your intention is to go a long way from civilization, you're actually going to want a a vehicle that's going to be reliable, and Hondas are certainly, you know, well known for that. So the traction control button down here can deactivate the traction control while you're on the move. You don't have to stop. If you're just riding along the highway, you know you're going to go from a sealed road to an unsealed road. You certainly press the button while you're riding along at any speed, so that's no problem at all. You can't deactivate the ABS on this model. I haven't found it to be causing any major problems. The only time I did have any issues with it was when I had a road tyre and I was riding off-road, going down quite a steep hill, and the front wheel was trying to lock up, obviously because I didn't have the right tyre on, nor was I in the right place for the tyres I did have on. So once I put a knobby on the front, I didn't have a problem with that happening at all. So the ABS is very, very unobtrusive. I've only had it come on once in the road, and that was really, really heavy braking, trying to avoid someone who was being an idiot. So. Keep in mind I'm 2 up, and I've calculated there's about 450 kilos of weight on board. 2 people, the luggage, the bike, fuel. It's sort of really steep and rocky, and the trick is not to let the front end get away, not to let the bike, because it's so heavy, to build up too much momentum, because it's so hard to pull up. So the trick is just to keep the brakes on nice and steady. The good thing is the Crosstourer has got linked brakes, so back brake brings on some of the front brake and tends to squat rather than nosedive, so kind of really handy in terms of controlling the momentum. It's a really long way down. We're going to be going downhill for quite a while. Everything else I'll talk about from the bike. I'll talk about the screen.
So I painted this visor black just to provide a little bit more shade in there. There was just too much light getting in there and making it a little bit difficult to see the instrument cluster during the bright sunny days. I've taken the big one off, got a big touring screen, and that's really good in winter and in the weather, in the rain. It just provided such a good level of protection, but in summer it just was actually restricting the amount of airflow going across my chest and therefore through my jacket, so it was just a bit hot, so I took it off. But I didn't like that one clear, and I think I've just painted the inside of it black, so the outside of it's still a high gloss, and I think that actually looks pretty good like that. Particularly from the front on, I really like how it looks.
So I would definitely, if you intend to take one of these off-road, definitely get a bash plate. That has been a huge benefit on a number of excursions where it's taken some significant hits and saved the pipes on the bike. And probably, you know, I've done a lot of Ks in 6 months and a lot of miles. The drive shaft, fantastic. Brakes, front brakes are fantastic. I've only ever found the front brakes wanting for, you know, a little bit more power when I've been 2 up and fully loaded, and actually on the hammer in some nice twisties. So they were struggling a bit with the weight, but that's the only time I've noticed any real issues, and it was just a little bit of brake fade. That's the only time. Front brakes are absolutely excellent. Six pots on each side, and 4 at the back. So the brakes on this are combined brakes, so they've got that Honda combined braking system, dual, whatever it's called, I can't remember. But basically what it means is you apply a little bit of back brake, and it grabs 2 of the pistons up the front and gives you a little bit of front brake as well. Excellent for trail braking if you're carving in amongst the twisties. Ergonomically, it's fantastic. Great riding position. You're sitting upright, sitting nice wide open shoulders. The instrument panel, the instrument cluster is really, really clear, really easy to read. So the instrument cluster, across the top here you've got the tachometer, ambient temperature, and just above that in the bar is the, can we see that at all? Just above that is the engine temperature. Yeah, I'm trying to get that properly. Time down the bottom left. You've got a couple of functions to change the trip meter A and B, and then the odometer. and there's obviously a flashing light there at the moment. That's the gear selector. So we're not in gear at the moment, the engine's not running, so it's not going to give me one of those. And then we've got this scroll through, which I've done on another video, so I'll put that in there. And then, so you notice you've got two lights up over here. You've got the ABS and the traction control lights and the engine management lights, so they all go out once you've start the engine, which I'll do. These two lights here, those two lights, the ABS and the traction control will go off once you're moving, so everything else is pretty stock standard. It's very easy to read, very clear, big speedo right in the middle, and then obviously the fuel gauge on the top right hand side. So
a lot of reports I read said it didn't have a distance to empty. It doesn't have a distance to empty all the time, but it does have a distance to empty once you get to the last bar on the fuel gauge. So the fuel gauge is the top right up here. So you get to the last bar of the fuel gauge and it drops away from the average and from the instant and goes over to the distance to empty. And normally when you're down to the last bar, depending on how hard you've been riding at the moment, what have I been doing? Average of 5.5 to 6. So that's going to give me a range there down to the last bar of about 310, 315 k's. And then normally what happens when I get to the last bar, it'll tell me I've got maybe 60 or 70 kilometers left to empty, distance to empty. So it's actually quite a good system. It's not there in your face all the time. I know there's a lot of systems that got it. My GPS has got it. When I reset the fuel, it'll actually give me a distance to empty, so not a big deal.
So very clear, very easy to read, and look, I'm you know, really impressed with this. You can actually adjust the brightness of the backlighting as well, so that's not a difficult thing to do. So it's got LED indicators and taillight, but on the 2012 model you don't get an LED headlight, so you only get the normal filament. Then you've got obviously the high beam down here. This is one great big spot, so you can actually put a bigger light into that. I just highly recommend putting a sump guard on. A radiator guard. And obviously there's a video there about the sump guard, so definitely put that one on. The grill, the radiator protector, I think is critically important. It's really exposed to obviously debris and stuff. So this is the non-DCT version. I think if I had the choice to get one at the time, I would have got the DCT version. But I'm a little bit old school. I've been riding for a while, so I don't mind having to change gears the old-fashioned way. But it's a big bike, and from everything I've heard about the DCT on this configuration of motorbike, I think the DCT would be perfect. So maybe the next Crosstourer I get might be a DCT version. Nothing wrong with the gears, nothing. The clutch and everything is fantastic on this, but just you know, the next step in technology for me might be the DCT. Interesting thing about the DCT, while I'm talking about that, and I don't want to be waffling, but the interesting thing about the DCT is it actually has got a separate oil filter for that. So when you do an oil change, you're doing two oil filters and 2 sets of oil, because the DCT has a separate filtration system with it. So in terms of servicing, without the sump guard on, obviously, and you got to take that off to get to it, but that's 6 bolts, 8 bolts, no big deal. It's an oil filter. I've got an air filter under the tank, so you've got to take that panel off there and that panel off both sides. Not hard. There's 2 bolts there, there's a bolt there, and 5 clips, I think. So 3 bolts and 5 clips, and that comes off, and 2 bolts, and you can lift the tank and get to the air filter, no problem at all. You know, it's really, really simple. Valve check. They recommend, the book says 24,000 kilometres, and I didn't do mine at 24 because my previous experience with Hondas is they don't really need it. I've just clicked over 40,000 kilometres, and I did the valves on this just recently. I got a mechanic come to me and do the valves, all completely within spec. So he said there's no problem with leaving these things to 40,000 kilometres before you check the valves. So yeah, servicing on them is straightforward. The diff, obviously, because there is oil in there. You've got to change. The book says 50,000 Ks, but it's only 300 ml of oil, so it takes 5 minutes to do. So every time I do an oil change, every 6,000 Ks, I'll just change the oil out of that. If I miss it, no big deal. You know, I know guys that have run the diffs on their bikes forever and never change the oil, so it's probably not such a big deal. Coolant, obviously, you know, every 100,000 kilometres or whatever they recommend, but seriously, there's nothing to do to this. This is not a bike that requires lots of maintenance. This is not a bike that requires, you know, lots of finicky stuff. It's very, very reliable, very sturdy, and like I said, I love it. So, hey, thanks for watching, and I'm going to get back on the road, and you know, when you get a bike, let me know. I'd love to hear what you think of it. Ride safely. See you later.